Thank you. My name is Clement. I'm from Forrester Research, global research and advisory firm. We're based out of Boston. And I'm happy to have a great panel here today with me. What I'll do is I'll let them introduce themselves, what they do in the companies, and then we'll get Pat over there to talk about what Internet.org does. So, Sean, go ahead.
Hi everybody, I'm Jean-Christophe Lemery and I work in Ericsson, company based in Sweden, in Stockholm. I'm working in Beijing here as a sales, heading the networks and services sales for operators then in Northeast Asia.
Hi everyone, my name is Misha Benoliel. I am a CEO and co-founder of a small startup based in California called Open Garden, and we are the market leader for peer-to-peer mesh technologies made available to the public. And we have two main apps, one called Open Garden and another one called FireChat.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Shrikant Raju. I work for Microsoft in the devices organization, which means that I was with Nokia until last week. And in my career, which started in Silicon Valley, with Borland, Oracle, and Sun Micro, and then Nokia in a few continents. Finally sees me based in Beijing for the last couple of years, where I'm responsible for all the internet, gaming, and other application developers and partners such as the elite group that we've got here, who are all based in the broader Asia Pacific region. So that's me, and I look forward to having a great conversation here with you all.
Hi, my name is Pat Wu. I'm from Facebook, out of the Menlo Park office, and I lead strategy and planning for an initiative called Internet.org, which I'll have the privilege of providing a little bit more background on before we turn it back to the panel discussion.
Yeah, sounds good. So, Pat, over to you. Okay.
So Internet.org was an initiative that was founded in August of last year. The intention is to make the internet access available to those who are currently not available. It is a collaboration, a global alliance across a variety of partners, with the founding partners, a couple of them are represented on this panel, primarily within the technology industry. As most of you know, we're in one of the most amazing transformations of the economy right now. We're moving from a resource-based environment to a knowledge-based environment, which means that we're going through a transition where it's about having natural resources to an environment where knowledge is the key place by which there is an opportunity to go ahead and have opportunity and expansion. The beauty of the knowledge economy is that anyone can participate, adding and creating content or benefiting from it, so that it's not just about having the resources. In addition to that, there's also tremendous social benefits. As we've seen in a recent Deloitte study, the internet access has already benefited the developing world. We've already seen a reduction of hundreds and thousands when it comes to infant mortality. In addition, the internet expanded can produce an additional 140 million jobs and bring 160 million people out of poverty. There's an opportunity within areas of healthcare to expand lives, opportunities within education, as well as within agriculture and all the different aspects. However, as we look at the world right now, out of the 7.2 billion people, we've seen tremendous progress in increasing internet access, but only 1/3 of the world currently is online. And most of them are actually the ones who are wealthier in developed world and are more educated. The vast majority of the world, 2/3, currently are not online. The main focus of Internet.org and the Alliance of Partners is to address the barriers of why people aren't online. And that's inclusive of accessibility, affordability, and awareness. With regard to accessibility, one of the core aspects is network access. Based on ITU, what we've been told is 90% of the world is under 2G coverage, and an additional 50% of the world has 3G coverage. But in addition to network access, it's important to have access to electricity to be able to charge devices. And currently, the coverage of network is greater than the electricity grid. In addition, there's an importance of accessibility. There's actually many languages, both spoken and written, that currently aren't able to engage the internet, simply because they don't have fonts or keyboards to be able to create content or even consume it. With regard to affordability, the cost of devices, the cost of data access, oftentimes for people are a significant percentage of their disposable income. And we don't want it to be a choice between access to basic needs like food and water to the internet. So affordability is a big obstacle. And finally, when it comes to awareness and relevance, there's a significant amount of people who currently don't know what the internet is, let alone why should they spend their hard-earned money to go ahead and come online. A key part of that is actually building the awareness of the internet and also making sure that there's relevant content and services in local languages. We recognize that the goal of bringing the rest of the world online is a challenge that one company cannot do alone. And that's why we launched with a group of 7 founding partners. As we continue on this journey, we know that it's going to expand to a larger group, including businesses, governments, nonprofits, and academics, and many of the individuals in this room as well. And I want to turn it back to this panel as we're going to discuss even deeper on the business and technology challenges that we're going to collectively work to overcome to bring the rest of the world online.
Thanks, Pat. It's a great presentation. I think it's a massive, massive initiative, one that probably involves a lot more than just us here. But I'd like to kick it off, by breaking it up into two parts. So we'll talk about the business part, and then we'll talk about the technology part. But I guess based on technology itself, there are lots of ideas that you guys have already put out in terms of access, right? So maybe what I'll do is get you guys to share your thoughts on access, connectivity. So maybe Jean, Christophe, can share some ideas around that.
So business challenges in terms of connectivity.
Technology first.
Technology first, okay. Well, I mean, of course, let's say from a technology perspective, there are a number of challenges that we need to achieve, right? The first one I would say is, what was mentioned there, the fact that the price point of the technology needs to go down drastically. Not only the technology in terms of barrier of entry, but also in terms of efficiency, so that we, the cost of what we consume costs less and less. So in terms of price point and efficiency, we need to lower the barrier of entry and also lower the consumption, the cost per unit consumed, let's say, from an end user perspective.
How do you propose we do something like that?
Well, I mean, there are a number of aspects to be improved there. The device industry, there are a number of players already working really hard and quite aggressive in the market to, put on the market device price points which are on the same level as 2G phones today, in the $15 to $20 phone price range. We need to get smartphones on that price level if we want everybody to be able to get a smartphone. In terms of efficiency, I think efficiency comes 2 ways. One is to really leverage what we have today. Not everybody will be able to get 4G immediately. Therefore, we need to sweat the assets and make sure that we take most of the 2G and 3G networks that we have around the world. And of course, in addition to that, come the new technologies, right? That will, of course, improve the efficiencies of the consumption and the networks plus devices.
Okay, one last question for you. So in terms of sweating the assets, how do you propose operators do that? Because we're talking about a segment of the population that is probably not as well served by, networks. So what's a possible solution to, I guess, connect them up?
Okay, how to sweat the asset? I mean, if you think of it, basically the ways that applications are built today are very much it's very much based on the Western markets and the Western needs and the Western networks, I would say. Therefore, if an application developer develops an application typically in California, they're testing their apps on very fast LTE networks from AT&T and Verizon and so on, right? However, if you take that app and you bring it to, 2G network pretty slow in China, it's not going to work, or you're going to have to wait a long time. And there are a lot of things we can do there to make sure that people have a smooth user experience on those networks, 2G and 3G, in their major markets. And I can go in more details if you later on.
And Richard, since we're talking about applications, I guess it's quite timely.
So,
yeah.
Since we are into applications and technology, I'll try to explain very briefly how technology works, but we have a very different approach on how we distribute access to the internet and connectivity in general. With our system, you get connectivity from the people and the devices that you have around you. And I'm going to try to be more precise on that. So, and I have a question for the audience. How many of you have a smartphone with you today? Can you raise your hands? Okay, so it's almost more than 90% for the whole audience. So when you install one of our applications, what it does, it turns your phone into a real router. That means you can now access not only the internet and have data access through your carrier like China Unicom or China Mobile or the Wi-Fi. You can access the internet through all these channels at the same time if everyone has the application installed. That means it makes your internet faster, stronger, and more reliable. So that's the way we approach connectivity. It's basically crowdsourcing connectivity.
Right. The population that we're trying to connect, how would they benefit from such technologies?
Publishers? Sorry?
The population that we're trying to...
That way you can, let's say you are in a place you don't have any signal, and maybe someone next to you has access to a Wi-Fi network or has access to a carrier network you don't have access to, and with this application you can now access the internet. So it's really enabling to spread out the signal of internet access everywhere and make it more available. And more recently we launched an application which is very popular because it's regarding messaging, and it does the same for messaging. That means you can exchange messages with people around you, and it works in that case even if you have internet access or without internet access. And we think that more and more, because of the smartphones ecosystem, people will start to grow their own internet. Because when you have local connectivity, you can do a lot. And even in that situation, if you have a very low internet access or no internet access, you can keep on exchanging information, which can be messages, and that's how we started with FireChat.
Right. Thanks, Michelle. So, talking about the cost of devices, and I guess you'd be best placed to answer that. How would we, bring about a device that is accessible, as Pat mentioned earlier?
Sure. First of all, if you go a couple of decades back, it was all about connecting people. And the meaning of connecting people basically was about, letting two persons communicate with each other using a phone call. Now, very soon, that definition had morphed into something completely different. Now, when not only now, even for the last 5 years, when we talk about connecting people, it is about connecting them on the internet. It is about connecting them socially, etc. So if you think about it, I think Jean-Christophe hit the challenges, especially for the consumer segment that we are talking about in the growing markets. Crystallized it very well. It is about cost, and it is about the user experience. It's not just enough to have an application available on a device. It is also about making a consumer be aware of it and letting them, within their challenges and within their limitations, be in a position to actually use it in the price point that they are comfortable in. So one of the things that we have been working on in tackling this problem is, for example, with all the content that is resident on the cloud, you can do, push as you would do in a traditional smartphone. So the data needs to be cached, and so we've had technology such as a proxy browser in our device that actually lets you transmit compressed data, which allows you to get as much of an 80% in savings as far as data traffic is concerned, and still use as much of the cache data so that the precious minutes that a farmer in a rural India or rural Vietnam can actually conserve their prepaid data minutes and use it still to communicate and correspond with the people that is of relevance to their network. In addition to it, I have with me in my hands a device that we introduced in the Mobile World Congress. It is a Nokia 220, and now it is a larger cousin of that device. It is a 225 with a 2.8-inch screen, where Facebook is already integrated as a hot button. And we raise awareness of this in all of our points of sale, so the user who buys this device know that there is actually this Facebook entity, and they are given a little bit of training as they are purchasing this device that is now getting them one step closer to becoming a true internet citizen, if you will. And so it is about bringing the cost of the devices down, and so now the cheapest device that allows internet and social is, now we are talking, tens of euros of devices. This device, for example, is priced at 29 euros. And now with that, you see internet and social experiences being baked into every price tier that is now going to be available. And now strategy analysts have recently said that in the lower end smartphone segment, it's the fastest growing mobile phone segment of all, showing a year-over-year growth of 20%. Now, when you are still looking at the challenges of the next billion people who are not connected, and with the help of the partners that are here, as well as, for example, Microsoft, we have a new vision which is cloud first, mobile first. Essentially, we all are well aligned in making sure that the rich content that is out there in the cloud needs to be brought to the client of even the cheapest devices that are going to be out there in the hands of our consumers tomorrow.
Cool. Pat, so based on what the rest of the panel has suggested, where does Facebook fit in the overall scheme of things? Where do you see yourselves playing a role?
Most of the points that the panel has already touched upon is pretty much where we fit. So a tremendous opportunity is definitely within efficiency, because we happen to be on, half of the people who are online are on Facebook. So as we reduce the data consumption of our application, it helps to lay the groundwork for not only the affordability of the people who are using our application, but we're going to work to how do we share those pieces of knowledge to the broader ecosystem so they can make their apps more efficient. And it's not only for data consumption, but it's also for battery consumption, because the opportunities to charge your device in different areas is much harder than what we probably face here with Beijing. In addition to that, some of the things that we're looking at is, for us, a big part of our platform is the ability to create content and share with your community. So one of the things that we're really working hard into is look at the current languages that are written that currently don't have an easy way to access and create content online, whether it be because of keyboards or fonts, or maybe there needs to be a step change where people haven't grown up in an age where there are keyboards. So whether it's voice to text or text to voice, how do you increase the ecosystem by which people can interact and benefit from the content that's out there? And so those are some of the components aligned with what the panel has said that we feel like is a critical opportunity to bring people online.
Right. One of the things that strikes me about Facebook is that it's not uniformly adopted across all the regions we speak about. So how do you manage in terms of bringing that message out to the regions that you don't have a sizable presence, but already the people that have access to another platform that's similar, or like Weibo, for example?
For each country, there's a different type of strategy, right? Because the populations in every country will use our platform for a different reason. And more often than not, we found that the engagement within our platform is really based upon who you know that's on the platform, right? Because that's ultimately what brings you on board. And so within the US, right, where we are the predominant player, where it's a wonderful opportunity by which you can not only engage in news content, but you can understand what your friends and families are doing. In other countries, we're working closely with operators, where there's an opportunity to really bring the next generation onto the internet. And what better way to do it than a service that billions of people are actually benefiting from already? So we've launched specific pilots to not only zero rate, but also work very closely with operators by which they not only have an opportunity to bring and increase their subscriber base, but what is the on-ramp by which they can become data subscribers, and opportunities by which they can go ahead and use Facebook, as well as other ways to discover the rich content that's out there. So I kind of laid the gamut out, right? So how do you continue to grow in markets that we are the predominant player, but how do we go ahead and deepen our footprint in markets that we are not? We're really just is very tailored to the market. So that's, in some ways it answers your question, but it's not as, I can't go into detail to each of the markets.
Cool. So I guess the next question is quite open. Feel free to jump in at any time. We talked about user experience, and how it needs to be married to a great device and stuff like that. And as Pat pointed out, in some cases, the access to particular languages is not available right via the keyboard. So how do you put out a great user experience-driven device, and as well as the actual connectivity aspect of that? Any ideas? Yeah, sure.
For our software, the way we do that is we try not to ask anything to the user, and we do everything seamlessly, and the software will automatically connect and open the right connection, whether it's Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or your 3G or 4G, and try to get you connected almost all the time, and do that completely seamlessly. So there is no discovery process, there is no pairing process. All that is done in the background, so you don't have to think about anything else than just browsing your content and do what you need to do on the internet.
So in our experience, we've been selling devices in over 165 markets around the world. So we've been doing this for a very long time. Granted, not every device is going to be relevant in every market out there in the world. The device that is going to be appealing to the sweet spot in the United States is probably not the device that will appeal to the sweet spot or even be in a position to be affordable by the people living in, say, for example, Cambodia. So that being said, it is absolutely critical that the user experience that we offer through the device is something that is homogeneous, in the sense that the device can behave like two different kind of devices depending on where it is being sold. So we engineer the devices very carefully, from the design language that goes into the hardware aspects into the software, as well as working with the third-party vendors, as well as within our own platform, to make sure that there is the right kind of language localization is offered, and that the app experiences are some things that are, like I said, homogeneous, as well as something that is locally relevant as well, by working with the top brands, if you will, whether it is the social, entertainment, gaming, news, media kind of experiences, and we offer that. So thereby, you not only have a device that looks and behaves like a device that is sold anywhere else on the planet, but now it also is supplemented with the right kind of locally relevant app and the service experiences that your local consumers would need and want.
One of the tenets of our culture is we're very data-driven. So as we go ahead and design our application, we very much track and measure and assess how different consumers engage. So as we found in some places, just simply let's just take the variance of English. American English is very different than British English, which is also different than English in India. And so simple adjustments in how we frame buttons or the onboarding flow has actually made dramatic changes by which people going through the flow understand our product and benefiting from it. And that also has now extended even more as we understand the pervasiveness of different devices and OSs. How do we optimize this experience? And we are very careful to not only measure them before it goes live, but also carefully monitoring as they do go live and adjusting accordingly. So in that way, improving the accessibility and the user experience over time to really engage the broader base.
Right. Jean-Christophe?
So picking up on the homogeneous user experience, so I'm going a little bit away from the language now, but what we have announced together with Facebook actually a few months ago at the Mobile World Congress is this joint innovation lab, right? Ericsson and Facebook. And what we're going to do there is that Ericsson is basically giving the ability to Facebook, together with application developers, the ability to simulate different network environments. Right? And as I said before, if you develop your app, and you test it on the NetE network super fast, you probably don't see all the problems that are going to come up when someone uses it, in China, remote rural China, where only 2G is covered, right? So if you would like to do that, if you're an app developer and you would like to, prepare your app to be global, you will need to go through the entire list of devices, in the targeted markets, the different technologies, 2G, 3G, Wi-Fi, LTE, and also different country constraints, right? Because each country has its own constraint. So what we're trying to do now is to basically implode all that complexity in one simulated environment, so that one app developer in Silicon Valley can just test its app in one click to understand how does it fit, the global scale. Can I go global, or do I need to change anything in the flow, in the heavy is the app, what kind of pictures, what kind of resolution of pictures do I need to use, and so on, so that it works homogeneously everywhere in the world, independently of the technology that is used behind.
Let's talk a bit about the business side of this discussion. How do you, build a business case for an initiative like this? Then obviously, part of this initiative is to try and connect up quite relatively, low-income groups. So how do you build a business case with your partners in country or around the region to drive something like this that makes business sense to them?
I want to say a word about an experience we ran in India, where 10,000 entrepreneurs and farmers were given Android tablets, and only 50 of them have a cellular data connection. And basically the way to democratize the access in that situation is through software, and that's what we do. So basically they have an open software on each device, and now the 10,000 tablets basically are hopping onto devices to connect to one of these smartphones that has cellular data connection. So I think a lot can be done with no investment at all, and just by democratizing access to the internet, making it available for people who cannot afford to have a data plan, can actually generate not only revenues, because that means more content displayed, so more ads, for example, that are going to be displayed, but also a better access to knowledge and information in general. So democratizing the access, even if it can appear to be in the internet.org initiative, or like what we do in India, it seems that it's completely free and given. Actually, the more people access the internet, the more revenue gets generated for everyone in the industry.
Can you give a bit more color? Like what exactly are they monetizing here?
Or when you access any web page with content and ads, the more people can access that web page, the more ads you're going to display, the more people are going to click on ads, and the more revenue can get generated. So it's just the law of, the more people access media and content, basically the whole revenue increase for the whole industry.
Right.
The more data gets used, so the carrier make more money.
Right.
The people who have the content can sell more content, and so everyone benefits from it.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, who supplied the Android tablets?
Sorry?
Who supplied the Android tablets?
I don't know the provider in that
Right.
specific scenario.
Okay.
We just have them deploy the software.
Right, okay. Pat, yeah.
So for us, it is a marriage of both the mission of Facebook as well as some of the market opportunities, right? So for us, our mission of making the world more open and connected is very much aligned with the broader mission of extending internet access to the rest of the world. When we look at the market side of the house, there's a combination of the long-run perspective, as well as the strong alignment on how do we work in the near term to really align with the business models of our close partners. I alluded to a little bit of our existing pilots with operators. How do we figure out a way by which we provide an on-ramp of people online through data services, including Facebook, but eventually, right, it has to be a profitable model for operators. And as we expose them to the experience and the data products, what is the right way by which we can bring more people online? In addition, there's also other innovative models. One example is this project called Social EU that we also announced at Mobile World Congress, and in partnership, Nokia is a part of that. And what that is looking at is what are different models by which we can have a broader constellation of players. So what Social EU is we're actually providing tertiary educational content to university students in Rwanda. and that is inclusive of content from a company called edX, as well as mobile devices that are affordable from Nokia, and working in close collaboration with the government of Rwanda, providing subsidies for the devices and also rebate programs. So if you think about the economic model, having those broader ecosystem individuals, is that a way by which we can go ahead and make the numbers meet and also meet the mission?
Just to add to that, I mean, Ericsson believes that communication is a basic human need. Right? We just need to find a way to get people to get a way, cost-efficient way to do it. Today, there are less than 2 billion smartphone subscriptions in the world, and we forecast that there's going to be more than 5 billion in 2019. But of course, those are not going to come for free, right? We need to work, as an industry, as an ecosystem to get it there. That's one part. The other part is that operators are in the business of selling a great user experience in an affordable way, right? And the learning that we get from those projects with Internet.org, we're going to be able to reuse them and redeploy them. We're in 180 countries. Our partners are the operators in each market, and we're going to be able to redeploy those learnings and those findings, in each market so that everybody can leverage it.
I think along the lines of what Mika and Pat were mentioning, to follow up on his thought. So, first of all, there is a clear demarcation with regard to what the user knows or wants to do with a smart device or a device that is connected. It's not just that the device is something that is connected to the internet, it is also something that whether it is the right kind of internet connectivity that the user can deal with. So for example, years ago we started a project called Nokia Life, with which we were able to inform farmers in rural India the right time to do the crop and other agricultural vital information that they need to be on top of using a mobile device, and it happened through a turnkey application. And using the Nokia Life services, many people learned English. They learned how to read and write in parts of rural India and Africa, where it was subsequently rolled out. So if you think about it, in increasingly going forward now, as we are transitioning away from a simple connecting people with voice to a cloud-first, mobile-first world, where everything is on the internet and we need to present the right information to the right user, then in all likelihood the users are going to be exposed to the content on the internet through the mobile devices. So there is the perceived value of the device that we offer through these kind of services. And that is what is going to be attractive to the next billion consumers. And we believe that with initiatives like this Internet.org and connecting the data and the content and the richness that is out there in the cloud through using these mobile devices as conduits reaching to the next billion consumers, is where there is going to be a tremendous amount of business value that we will look to tap as we go in the future.
Right. I think there are certain foundational things that we need to put in place. Just an example, in rural India, there's this company that rolled out ATM kiosks, but yet touchscreen with very simple symbols like a dollar sign for tapping and withdrawing your money. And so they don't need language in that sense. They don't need to do a two-way transactional thing. They just tap the screen for what they need to complete. And that's quite interesting because it takes into account the language barriers, if you like, of rural populations. They may not have the same language, but they recognize symbols, right? It's easily taught. And this bunch of ATMs is actually linked to the village shop, one shop that has connectivity. And so every week or so, they refill the ATMs based on what the transactional rates are. But that's quite interesting. Back to what you're saying about users starting to learn basic English. That's another, I guess, side effect of that. I'm just wondering whether there are other foundational steps we need to put in place, right, for this vision to become real. Any thoughts on that? What do we need to do first, right? Is it connectivity first? Is it devices first? Is it content? Well, what's the foundation that we need to build?
The way that we're looking at it in some ways is we segment the needs based on population, right? So what is the pressing need? So some of the population that we're talking about, to your example of rural India, if they're close to the fiber network or there's a signal, then it could be technology literacy or digital literacy, right? And how do you solve that? It probably isn't going to be just extending the internet the way that we experience it in the developed world or the people who are currently online. Is it going to be much more graphic based? Is it going to be much more audio? Is it simplified? Is the traditional keyboard the mechanism by which? For some places, the most remote rural places, it is going to be connectivity because without a signal, then you can't come online. So what's interesting, even as we look at who's not online right now, the U.S. falls in the top 20 when it comes to people, right? So it's for us, it's very much how do you look at the population, what is the pressing barrier, and then how do you work within that ecosystem to address it, right?
I just want to add that I think we're going to see, especially in emerging countries, more and more use cases where people, because they have smartphones, and this happens, for example, a lot in India or in Africa, where people have smartphones but often no internet access. But smartphones are really extremely powerful. And if you leverage what you have with your smartphone, and if you leverage the density of crowds and people, you can already build a network and start people having exchange not only information but maybe peer-to-peer payments. And that comes back to your point. I think we're going to see more and more these scenarios emerging in countries where people have a smartphone before even having any data plan. And there's a lot to be done there. And in use case we don't even think today.
I think you're spot on. It's going to take a village. It's not just going to be one company, one entity that can actually do it all. Because clearly there is fundamental changes and enhancements that need to happen. And at the same time, many of them will see the internet through the mobile devices. And at the same time, like what Pat was alluding to earlier, working with infrastructure partners is going to be critical. Such as offering the Facebook experiences through our devices with having the right kind of zero rating support from the operators, doing those kind of triangulation initiatives to make the right kind of compelling offerings to the consumers is just the tip of the iceberg. Now we can extend that to further investments and further innovations that we need to leverage on top of infrastructure providers and bring it all together and bring that smart experiences to the consumers as we go to the future. So yeah, a lot of work is ahead of us in every aspect of the next internet economy that our next billion people will be participating in.
Just following up on the point you made about infrastructure, some companies have floated the idea of having drones, balloons, to, I guess, connect up some parts of the world that cannot be, have standing towers. So I'm just wondering, Jean-Christophe, is that a viable idea, or is it something that is just purely science fiction?
Well, I think the reason why people are, trying to innovate in that sphere is that the economics, the economics at a certain point in time perhaps don't work, right? And then with the traditional way of building networks, and I think I think the two will be complementary. And the traditional, let's say, technology will improve, of course, over time. And with the economies of scale of the telecom market, of course, that will bring down cost and, of course, affordability for people. At the same time, there might be some very good innovations with balloons and so forth that can be a very good complement to bring connectivity in the areas where traditional methods don't work. Today, Ericsson already has a number of let's say solutions where we run the towers on solar panel and so forth, right? Where or with a connection to the satellite instead of being connected to the wire, to the internet. We have had to develop a number of hybrid, solutions, and I think those innovations, like the peer-to-peer kind of networking, are great, to add on to extend the reach of the network. Let's say.
I just want to add a point on this. I think there are fantastic and super exciting ideas. More than ideas, probably when we're going to start to be able to use connectivity through balloons and drones. But I think some time is going to pass before we can all do it. And it is fantastic because it is adding capacity to the network. And what we all need is more capacity to access the internet. And I think we all agree, because even today here, you can use your data connection, for 3G or Wi-Fi, you always need more access. And these technologies will enable to bring more capacity to the market and improve the access for everyone.
Pat, I guess.
So as a company who did talk about drones, as we look at the remaining population of the world that isn't online, if you take the ITU numbers, there's roughly about 4.3 billion. So the next 3 billion or so, they're going to be already within a digital footprint, a mobile footprint. So there's an opportunity simply to do some of the solutions that are existing off the shelf right now to extend connectivity, working with a broader ecosystem all the way down the value chain. But ultimately, as what was alluded to, the economics of doing the last billion, who are in the very remote areas, there needs to be a step change innovation on the technology side. And so it's a worthwhile investment from our perspective if we are ultimately going to hit the goal of connecting everyone to explore the technical solutions that would be required for the last billion. But primarily, right, as we're thinking about the near term, our big focus is working with the operators and other partners to connect that next 3 billion that we believe can occur within a much closer time frame. Right?
I want to add one thing there. With software, you can actually improve connectivity with the existing infrastructure. You don't need to buy or make any investment, and that's why apps and the software is so powerful. And sometimes it's a piece that has been, I think, forgotten from the ecosystem. And but today with the smartphone, and the power of this device that can be turned into routers or mini cell towers almost instantly with just the software, I think it's changing the whole way the mobile internet is going to function in a few years. And I think actually the internet will be not only the big internet, but it will be made of a lot of smaller internets that will interconnect from time to time when it cannot be connected all the time. And that's a big change in the way the whole mobile internet is going to evolve.
It sounds like a personal net, like personal.
People will grow their own internet. You already start at home when you have a tablet, a smartphone, and a laptop. And the more you add connected devices, like in this watch I have more and more wearables coming out. So you already have your own network with your own devices, and this is going to grow with your family, then with your neighbors, and after connect to the internet. So I think it's mobile internet is really experiencing a complete disruption thanks to these smart devices.
Right. So what I'm going to do now is probably just open it up for questions from the floor, and then we can take some questions. If anyone has a question for the panel here? Sorry, in the corner.
Yeah, that's nice.
Thank you. Thank you for that. There's lots of interesting things talked about during that discussion. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the timing of all this. What's going to happen next? Because when something sort of reaches a point, business will move in when they sense an opportunity and they'll gain momentum. But there are some barriers there. So where are the low-hanging fruits, as it were? There are people with smartphones but don't have a data plan. There are people on 2G, limited. So is that the low-hanging fruit? Can we expect any big breakthroughs on some of the more challenging areas within the next year or so? So just some thoughts on, what's going to happen next and the big sort of progress for this initiative.
Thanks. Maybe start with Pat, and then we come down this way.
For me personally, I think it's tough to put a specific timetable on it, but very much to the points that you made. Right? For us, our main focus is where is there already several of the barriers already addressed, whether it be on the device side, whether it be on the connectivity side. So if there's already individuals with smartphones in an ecosystem where there's 3G network, how do we bring them online? How do we do, whether it is the marketing or make sure that there's the relevant content and services to bring them online? In addition, how do we think about also planning for the long run, right? Therein lies the drones aspects on down the line.
Right.
But it's just about doing those right level investments. And for us, the approach that we're taking on Internet.org is through projects. We literally want to work together with the broader ecosystem, learn as fast as possible, and share that knowledge with a broader group of individuals so that it can scale rapidly.
I think one of the things before Shrikant answers, how is this partnership defined? Do you guys put in a specific number of people behind it, amount of investment of money? Or how is it defined and how is it shaped?
It is a project-driven partnership. So some of the projects that we've alluded to on this panel, whether it be the innovation labs, bringing the opportunity for people to go in Silicon Valley and recreate network conditions globally, or through Social EDU, bringing educational access in Rwanda. There are specific projects that each of the member organizations currently that are partners, as well as future partners, are going to collaborate on. It really feels like there's a broader opportunity to build upon our knowledge, as well as build upon the existing business priorities for each company. So it's much more of a project initiative as opposed to something that's a lot more formalized and structured.
Okay.
So from Microsoft's standpoint, as far as our device offerings to our consumers is concerned, it is our constant pursuit. The devices will be bringing more smarter experiences to more consumers in different price points than ever before, and that's just a constant that will continue to march on. This also aligns very well with some of the announcements that was made at the Build conference, where now the Windows Phone licensees will be licensed for no cost. So all of that will bring the overall price of the ecosystem, the cost to acquire a smart experience for a consumer will be going down, and then the move has already started. And like I said, it is a constant for us.
Shrikant, just one follow-up to that. Do you expect a breakthrough in battery consumption on the device? Because that's going to be one of the drivers for...
Yeah, I can. That's a great question. The only thing that I would add to that is, I don't have any specific dates to put on it, but it's an everyday research that is happening, and the progress that we've made in the battery technology. Like, for example, in this device that I have, there is a 30-day standby battery time and weeks of active talk time. So those enhancements are going in, and they will continue to go.
Thanks.
To come back to the question, I think the disruption is happening now. I don't think we have to wait. Just can't imagine what's going to happen. Just to give you an idea, since we opened subscriptions to our developer platform, so that's less than a month ago, we have already hundreds of developers who subscribe to get access to peer-to-peer mesh technologies, and they send us ideas every day on how they can develop applications that take advantage of that technology, either to have people better connected in particular situations like big events, or if you go to a stadium, for example, or if you are in the subway. So I think, disruption is happening now, and it's bigger than what we can even see. We're going to be surprised, and it's not going to take years. It's going to take a few months, 1 year. It's really happening now.
What's your assessment, and how do you curate the stuff that's coming into your ecosystem? How do you figure out what's good?
So we are a small team. We are 10 people. So we have an idea of what's going to take off first. Like when we launched this test application, because it was really a test for us called FireChat. We basically launched it just to make a test on the market, and in less than 10 days we were #1 on the App Store in 15 countries around the globe, and in the top 10 in 115 countries. So it was a big surprise in a way, and in another way we are not that surprised because we know people love messaging, and so it was a perfect use case.
Thank you.
Okay, to come back on the question then on inflection points. I mean, again, if you look at internet coverage in a way, we're more or less 80-85% of the world pop is covered, right? Today on 2G, tomorrow on 3G. So I think there's a huge potential to grow from the 2 billion smartphone subscriptions we have today, and I think we will hit the 4 billion approximately in the 15 to 16 time frame. So I think this is rather fast, right? We're gonna double the number of smartphone subscriptions just in a matter of 2 years, right? So I think the acceleration is there. We are in the inflection point now, and we're gonna add a couple of billions of smartphone subscriptions within a couple of years.
So just to close up on that question, what's the low-hanging fruit for you?
Well, for us, I mean, is to make sure that our customers, operators, are reaching out to all possible end users and getting data connectivity to all of them. Right? Not everybody was a smartphone as a data connectivity, and of course that's a huge potential, let's say, for operators around the world, and of course as people use those networks, of course we can benefit from that as well.
Okay, we have two. So gentleman in the front and then gentleman in the back.
Thank you. I want to say thank you especially for the concentration on business and society, but I want to bring the conversation a little bit more to politics and government. In the Middle East uprising, Twitter was a huge force. Even FireChat was very influential in Southeast Asia for protests. When mesh networks become very difficult to actually filter out, and when locations like Africa, where there isn't really a unified outlet for political discourse, receive internet or receive a way to actually have unfiltered conversations, what kind of broader implications is Internet.org considering in terms of what might happen to local governments or to local political structures, political groups?
Thanks for your question. That's not our scope for this panel. No, just kidding. Go ahead and answer.
So one of the things that we're trying to do with Internet.org, at least from the Facebook perspective, is working with governments on what do they see as their social needs. One of the things that specifically we're looking at is the concept of basic services. So there's, at least in the United States, originally when you had access to a dial tone, you had access to services like 411 or 911, effectively information as well as emergency services. Can we extend that to help governments and society address things related to education, healthcare, government services on down the line? So one of the things for us is specifically finding the right governments that are very excited about the opportunity of expanding internet access, partnering with them closely, and getting them as a part of the broader ecosystem to drive internet access more rapidly.
Any other thoughts from you guys? Okay. Gentleman at the back.
I just want to add one word on
Yeah, sure.
how actually connectivity can play a big role when you have situations of disaster or where basically people can have a difficulty to be connected to the internet, and where that's when, in these moments, that's when you need really connectivity. And that's where peer-to-peer mesh technologies can help a lot. So I just wanted to add that one.
I asked this question in favor of one of our readers. He asked, since Internet.org is more project initiated, is it possible in the future that we see more collaboration or even competition between Internet.org and any other organizations with the same or similar initiatives?
Thank you.
If I get the question correct, definitely for us, it is the goal of being much more collaborative with like-minded initiatives and organizations. As we've all alluded to, the barriers, although relatively known, are some things that are really hard for individual organizations or even existing people are actively engaged, are trying to work on. So we welcome definitely broader collaboration or broader initiatives that are focused on addressing these barriers. and ideally more and more opportunities to share those learnings so that we can accelerate the progress to connect the remainder of the world.
Because as a follow-up to that statement, what can the audience do to become part of this initiative? How do they contribute? What are you looking for?
I'm not as familiar with what's the demographic or what's the background of the individual audience, but effectively for us, as we think across the different aspects that are required to connect the individuals, a big part of it, because I believe this is a developer conference, is essentially making sure that there's content and services that are relevant to the populations so that there's a reason for them to come online. Some of that might be how do you localize content, whether it is strictly translation, whether it is literally having local content that is created. Some of it might be what are the right type of services that are required. Access to financial instruments, access to TV content, access to a whole bunch of series of things. So a big part of it is literally, as we've talked about, there's a decent amount of people who already are within 3G coverage or have smartphones. Simply having that vibrant ecosystem of applications is going to be something that is going to draw a bunch of people online in a much more rapid fashion than some of the other barriers that have to be addressed.
Just want to say a word on competition. And this morning I listened to Mark Wren from the CEO of Tencent, and his word was all about creating more connections. And I think if you look at the big giant of the internet like Facebook, Google, or Tencent, who are all competing, I think it's good because it's bringing, at the end, everyone wants to have more access for everyone and everyone benefits from it. So it's a good thing.
Just maybe to add to that, you know, the apps that you're going to develop are going to motivate, you know, the next 3 billion people to come online, right? So, I mean, this is a pretty big growth that you have. And as we said before, you know, the people in the emerging markets are as demanding as the people in the West, right, in terms of user experience. So make sure that you develop great apps and motivate them to come online on the internet.
Exactly. Yes.
I couldn't agree more with that statement. I mean, there is no such thing as a low-end consumer. You know, there are just consumers who can afford a low-end device, but they still want the same high-end experiences. So, you know, I also echo the same call to all of you developers that when you're designing and developing your apps, not just think about the uber techie 4G consumer, but also the consumers in the emerging markets, and think about reaching out to the next billion, because who knows, that's where, you know, you may hit the jackpot next from a business return on investment is concerned.
To quickly build on that, it is going to be imperative for people to really think about battery consumption, think about the type of networks that are out there, but then also not just only geared towards smartphones, because there's still a critical install base of feature phones out there, and developing applications to serve that market not only can address today, but also provides that right onboarding to really build people up into the next generations of devices and consuming the internet.
I just have one question for Shrikant, because we spoke about it. What's the difference today? Because when I see your Nokia phone, it does a lot of things that a smartphone is doing. So what's the difference today between a high-end feature phone like this one and a smartphone?
I don't think our audience or Clement would appreciate me turning this conversation into a sales pitch for our phones.
You have half a minute.
I'll just summarize this. I mean, the fundamental, the least common denominator is that the consumers' aspirations are towards getting the high-end smartphone experiences. So we got to deliver more of that into whatever price factor that they can afford. And that being said, there will always be differences. You know, there will be differences in the display technology, the camera technology, the imaging technology, and the kind of, you know, the hardware accelerator and the other ergonomics and so forth. That will differentiate a high-end device will always be there, and all of that will add to the bill of materials and add to the cost of the device. So you cannot have a 40 megapixel camera or a 20 megapixel camera with an with an autofocus and multiple lenses and optical image stabilization and add hover touch and all that kind of fancy stuff that will essentially become hygiene and that actually differentiates the coolness in our high-end devices are simply not possible in a device with a significantly low horsepower and significantly low hardware capabilities. And that being said, at the end of the day, they need to cater to the consumer demands of a real and oftentimes perceived smartphone experiences. So, suffice it to say that the gap is narrowing. At the same time, the hardware differences will always be there, justifying the additional cost and whatnot.
Thanks, Srikanth. So we just out of time, so please thank my panel, and they are around if you need to talk to them further about internet.org. I think it's a great initiative, so please connect with them.